Welcome again to Mark's Motivational Podcast for another Motivational Thursday. Today I'm delighted to have Rich and Fintan on the podcast with me. These two guys, we've been practicing a good bit on NLP and we're going to be hopefully putting a course together quite soon. So watch this space for that. So welcome along tonight, lads.
Yeah,
thanks very much, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, for the invite again.
For having us.
Yeah, great stuff. Great to have you back on again. But we'll probably start off the podcast talking a bit about what we're going to talk about tonight, ego states, which we've been listening to on Mike Mandel's podcast, Brain Software, and Orlando's been talking about it as well. But can we just start off with our spin on the lads, yeah?
Yeah, so my understanding of where all these ego states come from is also interchangeable with a name called parts. And it's the same thing. So they're just interchangeable names between the two. And this goes back to a lady called Virginia Satir. She was a family therapist in the US. And she was exceptionally good at it, exceptionally good at family therapy. And what she would do is have the whole family in a room, and one of the people would be acting out different various states of what they would represent in that family to integrate them better and to operate more functionally as a family, and obviously then operate more functionally in wider society. And how this got involved in NLP is Richard Bandler, Dr. Bandler, he was her driver, I believe. And so he spent a lot of time driving her around and then actually modeled her behavior and her language and what she used to start all this parts therapy going, which could be used either in groups or on yourself, which we will cover a bit later, I do believe.
Yeah, oh no, that's great. Yeah, I've Virginia Satir, I've come across her as well. Like she like Richard Bandler, as you say, they copied what she did, didn't they, Rich?
As I said, they modeled her. Modeled speech patterns, what she was saying to the families, and how she was also saying as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, great stuff. And yourself, Fintan, how do you use them yourself? And because you've been using them a fair bit lately, haven't you?
Right. I have indeed. Yeah. Just to kind of add to what Rich was saying there, what Rich said was excellent there. The origins of it. I suppose John Grinder himself said that the usefulness of it is just a model, the ego states model. The usefulness of the model the value of a model is in its usefulness. So whether it's true or not, it doesn't really matter. Nobody's saying it's actually happening and that sort of thing. But the fact is NLP itself is based on modeling excellence, and the ego states then is a model of the parts therapy that Virginia Satir used to use. Just the way I learned about ego states from Mike Mandel, from first of all his podcast, and then from his masterclass on ego states. And I found it very useful straight away. In fact, I listened to it and thought, wow, that would be great for me to do. And then I thought, well, look, I really need to do this, because I was finding, okay, the way it works is if you imagine a bungalow, and there's one door, front door, and whatever ego state answers the door is how you are feeling, is the state that you are in at that particular moment in time. So, for example, if you are with your friends, relaxing, socializing, you're in a different ego state than, for example, if you're at a meeting, a high-powered meeting, a meeting in work, for example. And likewise, if you're playing with your cat or your dog, or if you're with your girlfriend, whatever, compared with, say, if you're playing a football match, obviously you're going to be in very different states. So the idea is that what you want is to have the right ego state in the executive, or in other words, answering that door at the right time. So an example that you might have is quite often we will be doing something and we might say to ourselves, well, I really don't feel like doing this. But in fact, that's just because the wrong ego state is in the executive. So an example, what I use now is I call on the ego state that I need to come into the executive. And I suppose I can explain a bit more to you about that as we go. Well, I suppose the main ego state would be your highest wisdom ego state. So what this is like, if you take a moment and you just relax yourself there and you call on your highest wisdom ego state. Now, what will happen is, if you can imagine a classroom where the teacher has left the classroom and all the kids are up and about and they're all messing or whatever. But there's one kid sits in the teacher's chair. Okay. Now imagine that the teacher comes back. Suddenly the class goes quiet. The kids all run back to their own and the teacher sits in their chair and everything goes quiet. The kids all listen, they start paying attention. So suddenly what's happening is all these different conflicting states stop. When you call in the highest wisdom ego state, they all stop and they all will listen to this state. Okay. And what you can do then is, so every morning, for example, when I'm doing my meditation or whatever, I call as part of it my highest wisdom ego state. And I thank it, first of all, for all that it's done. I suppose if you think of it as maybe like being the president of a company, and then you have your general manager then is sort of the one who organizes everything, keeps an eye on how things are running, how smoothly things are running. So what I have done is I started listening to and talking to each ego state as it came in. One of my main ones was, for example, I would feel overwhelmed if something I had to do a job or I wanted to do a job, but I would get this feeling of dread that would stop me doing the job. And I would say, okay, well, let's have a think about this now. So I would then talk to that particular ego state and say, okay, how are you feeling? And the answer would automatically come back. It comes back very quickly, is I'm feeling overwhelmed. And going, why am I feeling overwhelmed? What do I think? Or why are you making me feel overwhelmed? And go, well, I'm protecting you from failure. You know, if you try this, you may fail. And I go, well, that's okay. Thank you for doing that. And it's important to be respectful and to be thankful for any information, any feedback that you get. And to take, and then go, okay, well, do you think, have I done this before? Am I capable of doing this and doing it successfully? And the ego state will look and go, or will say, yes, you have done it before. You've done it many times before. And yes, it's always been successful. And immediately the overwhelming feeling starts to melt away, because that particular ego state has just evolved, right? To realize that actually, so it doesn't mean it's gone away, and it will come back, but it means that you can talk to it, or I can talk to it and say, okay, am I capable of doing this successfully? Have I done it before? And if not, can I get help from somebody else? So rather than being stuck there and just not doing it, which, you know, obviously procrastination is a big thing, I will actually pay attention, and I will say, well, okay, am I capable of doing it? Or at least, can I find someone who can help me to do it? Or can I find some way of doing it? And then that way, then it just calls in a different ego state. You know, it automatically changes. And I have found it so very useful now. And I've only been doing this for the last month or so. And I have to say, it's getting better every day, and much easier, because now they all just kind of work together. Doesn't mean that I don't have to get involved sometimes, but every day as part of the meditation as well, I get them to work together. And I tell my highest wisdom state what ones I want to come up next. So for example, if I'm doing work, I want one that's focused, or if I want to do something, for example, go out for a walk, do some exercise, then I'll want my active ego state. So I just tell them what one I want next, what time to come in it, and all that sort of stuff. And believe it or not, it's just, I find myself looking at my watch and going, oh, it's that time. And the ego state just changes, you know.
You know, it's great because I've been only started doing it myself recently as well. Where, like, for instance, if last night I had this guy Arthur on the podcast, and I was feeling kind of a bit wrecked, you know. You're probably you're lazy and kind of time to relax and chill out and watch a bit of TV, you know. But
Sure.
I tried. I called upon, like, you know, your library ego state and your confident ego state. Just, you know, and sometimes, as you said, you can use it like before, like, how would you say, like, meditate, or, like, you know, if you're going into a kind of a relaxed state, and that can work as well, can't it? Like, when you're nice and relaxed and you're kind of saying, okay, like you said, bring like the library ego state to the executive, or, you know, the confidence, so you're feeling confident. It's great. It really kind of helps you, doesn't it? Because, you know, for the last while, like, I've only done the last week or two, but it does really work, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Improvements, Mark?
Say again.
Are you noticing any improvements in yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because, for instance, like, I found a lot when I started doing the podcast about 2 years ago. I'd be going a lot, you know. It was the kind of habit I had of doing it, and but it's not as bad as it used to be. But when I'm doing it, when I ask the ego state to confidence, you kind of feel yourself just more in the flow. And I just, for anybody that's listening out there to try this stuff, I'm sure you agree with me, lads. It's great.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say it's also important to name your ego states, such as you said, like the librarian, as you said, Fintan, you got the executive.
Yeah.
And avoid calling them, say, like Philippa or Roger or Colin, because you may end up as a schizophrenic. You want to have them as like what job you would like them to be doing, and not as an actual person.
Yeah.
Because that could go down a really bad route for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have the white coats.
That naturally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry. The people in the white coats going.
I found that. I found that naturally, I call all of mine Fintan, or maybe Finta, or whatever, with their job beside them, you know, and it's actually and it just works. It works for me. I have active Fintan, and I have focused Fintan, and all this sort of stuff, and it just means then that one can just come straight. And I think that the more that I do it, I'm finding that it's probably burning more neural pathways, and they're just coming more naturally to me. And actually, what I do is, at the start of the day, as I said, I hand over the jobs to the highest wisdom ego state, and it will just divvy them out. And then the general manager will make sure that they happen on time, they come in on time, and they do their job on time, and all of that, you know. So I have to say, I find it so much easier now to do stuff, that even if I'm there and I feel, oh, I don't want to do that, I can just say, okay, well, why don't I want to do that? What's going on? And it just goes like that. Whereas before, I could go, oh, I just don't feel like doing that job, and that could last a week, you know, which is no use to anybody, you know, until eventually you have to do it, and then you just push that ego state out of the executive. Now it can just say, okay, this is the one I want. And actually, I had one at the weekend, which was I have one called Quartermaster.
Okay.
Ego state. And as anybody might know, a quartermaster is somebody who in the army or in scouts would look after all the gear. So they make sure the gear is in proper order. They make sure that if something needs to be fixed, it's fixed. If it's replaced, to be replaced. And I also had one called housekeeping ego state. And actually, it's funny because I kind of got the two of them to work together at the weekend. So I had to get in any stuff that I needed to get in, make sure I didn't run out of stuff, and then just cleared out bits of rubbish and stuff like that. And I found actually that rather than looking at going, oh, I'll put it out later, or it's raining, or whatever, it might be just empty recycling. You go, that like whole 10 feet between the back door and the recycle bin, it's a long way when it's raining,
That's miles,
Yeah.
mate.
and you've nothing on your feet. What's that, Rich?
That's miles, Fintan, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's just sort of, it seems to almost create the opportunities for things to happen together. And I'm actually very interested in how this is all going to pan out, because it's almost like, it's creating opportunities. And I happen to be passing, or happen to be in the right place, or I happen to have my shoes on now, and the rain just, when the rain stops, and next thing I find myself doing something, I go, oh, okay. Cheers. That's great. I don't have to think about it. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
It kind of reminds me a bit the way you were saying that, Fintan. I don't know if you feel the same, lads. The way habit stacking, the way, I know this is kind of a bit off topic, but I found in the morning time, let's say, just say you're brushing your teeth, or you have an egg boiling, let's say, or doing whatever you're doing, and at the same time you're doing an activity in a routine in the morning where you're doing your sit-ups or your press-ups and all that kind of stuff. When you're habit stacking, like, it relates to something that you're doing every morning. Do you get me? Do you ever do that?
I'll take that as a no then. Yeah.
Well, I suppose I have tried that. You notice they use the word tried. And it hasn't worked as well as I would have liked it to have. But that's one of the things that I'm noticing now with the ego states, using the ego states, is that it kind of does a form of habit stacking unconsciously. So I don't even have to think about it. And I'm noticing then that actually I'm going from one thing to the next just automatically without thinking about it, without consciously deciding to do that. Yeah, so I suppose that is kind of a form of habit stacking, which I've been able to implement well, which I've gotten my unconscious mind to implement.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because it is a kind of a form, it all kind of ties them together, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does.
Yeah. And Rich, have you ever found, the way you were saying, Fintan, that like you get the highest ego state? I've struggled with that a bit, to know which is the main one, so to speak. Like the example you gave earlier on about the teacher coming into the class. Have have you found that tricky, or how would you do that?
Just ask for it, Mark, I think, is the best way, and then that will come to the fore. Maybe it might take a little bit longer than somebody else's, depending on how evolved they are, but it will come, and it'll come eventually. It's just a case of working on it. And what I listened to earlier was excuse me, about what Fintan was saying about, so if you're feeling overwhelmed about a job, just ask yourself, and the ego state, ask it what it's actually feeling at the time, and what the problems are, and what sensations are in the body as well. And when you do get that response and that answer back from it, again, as Fintan said, thank it, and ask other ego states if they can help and they can provide support for that one as well. So that can enhance and develop it and make that grow into a more useful and productive state that's useful for you.
That's great. And that's brilliant for all the listeners who are listening to that, because everybody kind of feels like they have stuff they don't like to do. It's like, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were saying that like they used them like he hated washing the dishes, let's say. Like it wasn't his biggest chores around the house, didn't like that. But then he kind of listened to music, or at the same time, like the ego state that made them enjoy stuff. He found he didn't mind doing the dishes anymore, like, because he used a different state. I suppose he could use it as well, couldn't you?
Yeah, makes it more enjoyable. Why not? If there's something you don't like doing, like washing dishes, then maybe you could have the comedian state come in,
Brilliant.
I'd help
Yeah.
you laugh and help make the job
Yeah.
and task easier.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Or I'll pretend I'm playing the guitar or something international. No, that's great for everybody. Thanks very much, lads. Yeah, that's great. And I suppose like the question is as well, what like you guys, what do you think the best ego state use and what way are they most useful to yourselves? Like if you could answer in a just what do you find are the strongest ego states really for use?
The procrastination one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's to get out and work out that procrastination or that sense of not wanting to do something and work with that to then bring it to be able to function more effectively and to be able to do the things that I don't really feel like I want to do.
Yeah. And how about yourself, Fintan? That's a great one. We all kind of suffer with that. So to have that is so what would you use? What ego state would you use to help you with your procrastination, Rich?
I would ask it what it needs at that time.
Okay. Yeah.
And what support it needs within for that help as well. And ask the executive to find other more useful states to help that procrastination state to develop.
Yeah, because that's very interesting. We all learn stuff every day because like you're asking the executive to kind of find what the best one is. That's great. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, that's great. And how about yourself, Rich? What do you think the most
Fintan,
useful one? Or Fintan, I mean, sorry.
I'm back, am I?
You are.
Sorry about that. I froze. I thought Mark had frozen. Then I realized Rich had as well. So I went, oh, it's obviously me. So apologies there.
No, it's cool.
So I'm not sure. Did you ask me a question or anything?
Oh, sorry, Fintan. I was just wondering, like, what the most useful one you found over the last while have you been doing them? The most useful.
Yes.
Yeah, we can edit that bit out. So don't worry.
Oh, okay. That's all. Right. The thing is, the one that I found most useful recently is one where I feel that. Well, I tell you what, it comes from when I was on the Camino de Santiago. Right, Camino de Santiago was an 800-kilometer hike, right, and it was towards the end. They say the first 2 weeks is a physical challenge, and it really is. The second week is a mental challenge, and it is. You're looking at like it's the first week is in the mountains, or the first 2 weeks in the mountains. The next week is in the meseta, which is like flat and hot. And there's no shade; it's brown, you know. And then the final week is in Galicia. And Galicia is like Ireland on a nice summer's day, you know, and it's absolutely beautiful. They say the last week then is for the soul. So while I was in Galicia, I had actually said goodbye to a friend of mine, and he said, no, I'm going to catch up with you. And I thought, well, that's unlikely because I'd be pressing ahead. So anybody who was staying in a particular town that night, I said, they're not going to catch up with us. So I'd say goodbye to them all. But he said, no, that's fine. And anyway, there was one day I was there and we got up and we were walking and the others stopped for coffee. And I went, do you know what? I'm not going to stop for coffee. I'm just going to keep going. And they went, that's fine, because that was standard practice. You walked when you felt like it because it was a hard grueling day. So you had the energy to walk, you would walk. You needed a rest, you would rest. And so anyway, but I had this feeling in me that I was being pushed on the one hand and being pulled on the other hand. I had this kind of a rushing feeling. It wasn't really bad, but anyway, I was there and I kept going. And next thing anyway, I saw a fella and a girl ahead of me. And as I came closer to them, as I got up to them, he turned around and it was my friend who I had said goodbye to a couple of days beforehand. And he just started laughing. He said, I was just telling this girl that I was actually looking for you. He actually thought I was ahead of him still because he hadn't noticed that he had passed me out at some point in time. And I had this feeling, and as soon as I met them, that feeling went. And I recognized it. And it was funny because a number of years ago, I came across Taoist philosophy, which is like based on yin and yang and all that sort of thing. And Tao means the way, and Camino means the way. And I just said to myself, the way will always find a way. All right. And I've now converted that into an ego state, right? Where I feel that the universe is both pushing me in the right direction and pulling me in the right direction at the same time. And I have to say, it is such an empowering ego state that even now, just saying it, it just fills me up with like everything is just possible, you know? And so that to me has been the most empowering ego state so far. Because God knows what's coming up next, you know?
Yeah, that's one heck of an ego state, isn't it, Rich? That's a great one.
Yeah. Imagine, but it makes everything so easy, because not only are you being pushed in the right direction, you're also been pulled in the right direction as well. So it's twice as easy.
Yeah, great stuff. Because it's kind of like, as well as an ego state, I hear kind of anchors there as well. Like it's kind of like it's anchored as well, really, hasn't it? Doesn't it?
It anchored that ego state, that feeling, and then now I can draw on it, as an ego state. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, that's great. Thanks very much. Yeah, and as well as that, I remember hearing before on another podcast before that you can use the ego states. Just say you have an ego state that the person who's listening to kind of kept cutting in on people talking, like he kind of, you know, would keep kind of talking over people now and again, and his wife was saying, you got to stop that, you know. And then he used the ego states, and he went and talked to that ego state and made his ears bigger and the mouth smaller, you know, to actually do that. I found it really interesting. Did you ever come across something like that, Rich? Like the way that you can use them like that?
That's the only one. Yeah, I believe you called it blurt.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
No, I've not come across that before, but again, that'd be an interesting model to work on. Yeah.
Like it just shows you the power of them, that you can use them in so much different ways, can't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very much so, Mark.
Yeah. No, like the listeners are gonna get, because probably before people listen to this show tonight, they probably say, "What's that like?" Because there's a film that I brought the kids to see years ago, Inside Out. You were probably mentioning it before as well, where it's really cool. You had like the happy state, and they were all in the kids' brains trying to work it away. It's kind of the same concept, wasn't it, Fintan?
I did actually see that movie, but I may have fallen asleep during during a trip to Dublin. We brought the Scouts, and it was a long day, and we had a lot of stuff to do. So we used to always finish the day with bringing them to the cinema, which was my chance to go to sleep, you know. So
yeah, I've been there.
I would probably wake up near the end and go, "Oh, this is a great movie," you know.
Yeah.
But I believe, yes, it's the same concept. I must actually watch that movie properly now.
Yeah, it's good. Have you seen that yourself, Rich?
No, I've seen trailers of it.
Yeah.
The concept. Yeah, that's the same thing as the concept of that.
Because anybody that's listening or watching this on YouTube will probably that movie will come straight to their mind, like, you know. Yeah, it'll come to their movie ego state minds, like, you know. Yeah, no, this is great, lads. Thanks very much. And is there any advice you could give to people listening, you know, that haven't used this before, like, you know, who are newbies that want to kind of, because it can really improve, like, you know, even like, you know, for if you're going to exercise, and that could be another ego state, you kind of have your healthy ego state for eating healthy or running. There's so much, isn't there, lads?
Yeah, one thing is, so let's say we've all got these all parts or these ego states, and one of them might be to do with maybe drinking excessively, and that'd be your excessive drinking state. And then later on, after you're in your hangover in the morning and all that sort of stuff, you may get your inner critic giving you grief about being in that state from the previous night. But again, that's only part of you, because all these states are there to protect you and to defend you. This is what it ultimately is, as the subconscious is all about, is there to protect you. For some reason, one of the ego states needed to have that drink, and then the inner critic's gone, you shouldn't have done that, but they did, so a bit too late for that. So try and be more gentle with yourself when you've made a quick mistake, or you sort of messed up, if you can call it that.
Yeah.
Don't be too harsh on yourself.
That's excellent advice, Rich. Yeah.
Great advice. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, that was great, Rich. Thanks very much for that. That was really good, wasn't it, Fintan? Like, it just shows you all the stuff you can kind of help yourself with, like, with the ego states, isn't it?
It certainly was. Yeah. Well done, Rich. The one thing I'd like to say just at the end would be just to pay attention to how you're feeling at any given moment of time, and talk to yourself, as Rich says, in a compassionate way, and be thankful for any responses. You'll find that the responses will come back quickly, and that just to pay attention to them, and then to see what way you can improve things. And once you understand why you're feeling a particular way, it makes it much more easy to move on and to get into the state that you actually want to be in.
Yeah, but that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant voice. Thanks a lot for that, Fintan, and Rich. Thanks a million for coming on. This is so good. And as well as that, we're going to be doing, as I was saying at the start of the show, we're myself, Fintan, and Rich, we're going to be putting a course together, and we're working at the moment. It's only the very early stages, but we'll be including the ego states, and we'll be also doing around pretty much all aspects of NLP that can help people. Like we're going to do from teenagers all the way up to the 20s, weren't we, lads?
That's right.
Yeah. Like, we're going to be covering like basic hypnosis, how to do self-hypnosis, and anchors is a big one as well. The anchor states is a really good one, and like metaphors. So what we might do in the next week or two, we might do another subject as a podcast on what we're doing in the course, to kind of give you a feel for what will be in the course. How does that sound?
That's great. Yeah.
That's really good, Mark.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. So like, that was I'm sure all the listeners will agree that was a great insight into ego states tonight. Thanks so much, Rich and Fintan. It was really, really cool, and I really hope it's bringing you a lot of value. And is there anything else I haven't mentioned that you'd like to say before we finish up tonight?
I just want to say thanks very much for having us, Mark.
Yeah.
It's been
it's
a
great
interview.
Likewise, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for me on again, Mark. That's been brilliant. Cheers.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Like, it's great to be able to do something with the three of us, because the three of us are working as a partnership now, getting the course out there, which is going to be great, isn't it?
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's a presupposition for anybody.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, that's right. Cool. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so thanks very much, lads, and thanks for listening to Mark's motivational podcast and Motivational Thursday, another episode. So join us again for the next episode. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mark. Good night.
Thanks a million for tuning into today's podcast, Mark's motivational podcast. So I just want to advertise my new book. It's called Adventures of Larry Lamppost and Friends. It's a book I wrote for my own children, bedtime stories, collection of bedtime stories, and to some really funny characters in it that my kids love, so I'm sure your children will like as well. There's Larry Lamppost, there's Mr. Shopper, there's like, to name but a few. So I'd really appreciate it if you could buy this book, and it's available on Amazon, and if you want our book depository, so it's on Amazon UK and various Amazon sites throughout the world. So I really appreciate it. Then if you're in Ireland and you want to buy it off me, just contact me by email. It's mark marklestrange11@hotmail.com. That's marklestrange11@hotmail.com. So thanks a million, folks, for your continued support on the podcast. Really appreciate it. So listen, have a great week. And thanks for tuning in. Take care.